Dr. Lisa Park rubbed her tired eyes and looked at the screens again. It was 3 in the morning on Luna Base, the big space station that watched over Earth. Most people were sleeping, but someone had to keep listening to the radio signals from across the galaxy. Tonight, that someone was Lisa. She had been working at the communications center for 5 years now. Every night was the same. She would sit in her chair, drink coffee, and listen to the sounds from space. Most of the time, it was just noise. Sometimes she heard normal talk between alien ships or planets. Nothing exciting ever happened during the night shift, but tonight was different. A new signal came through the speakers. It was weak and broken, like someone trying to talk through. Static. Lisa turned up the volume and leaned forward. The sound was strange. It did not match any of the alien languages in her computer files. "Computer, run language check on incoming signal," she said. The computer voice answered her. "Unknown language pattern. Signal appears to be a distress call format." Lisa felt her heart beat faster. A distress call meant someone was in trouble. She started recording the signal and called her supervisor. "Hey Mike, you need to come down here. I think we have something." 20 minutes later, Mike Santos arrived with 2 other workers. They all gathered around Lisa's station and listened to the strange signal. The sounds were repeated over and over, like someone was very desperate to be heard. "Where is it coming from?" Mike asked. Lisa checked her instruments. "The Kepler sector. That's where the Zilani live." Everyone knew about the Zilani. They were a peaceful alien race that spent their time growing food and writing poems. They never fought with anyone. They never even joined the Galactic Council because they did not like politics. "The Zilani don't send distress calls," said one of the workers. "They solve problems by talking." "Well, they're sending one now," Lisa said. "Anna sounds bad." The team worked all night trying to decode the message. Lisa used every translation program she had. The Zilani language was hard to understand because they used sounds and emotions together. Finally, just as the sun was rising on Earth, the computer made a breakthrough. "Translation complete," the computer announced. Lisa pressed the play button. A voice came through the speakers, speaking in clear English now. It sounded scared and sad. "To any who can hear this message, we are dying. Our world is under attack by creatures we do not understand. They take everything. They're plants. Our trees, our animals, they will eat us too. We have no weapons. We have no soldiers. We do not know how to fight. Our children cry in the darkness. We've sent this message to every part of the galaxy. If there are any people out there who fight for others, please, help us. We do not have much time left." The room went quiet. Everyone stared at the speakers as the message started to repeat. Mike picked up his phone. "I need to call Admiral Morrison right away." Admiral Jake Morrison was not happy about being woken up at 3 in the morning. He was 55 years old and had been in the Space Navy for 30 years. Had fought in the border wars and helped. Earth joined the Galactic Council. He was used to emergency calls, but this one was different. "Play it again," he said after listening to the message the first time. Lisa played the Zilani distress call 3 more times. The Admiral sat in his chair and thought. Around him, his staff officers waited for orders. "What do we know about these attackers?" Morrison asked. Commander Kate Sullivan, his intelligence officer, pulled up files on her computer. "Not much. Sir, the Zilani called them devourers. We have no records of this species in our databases. But if they're attacking the Zilani, they must be very aggressive." "The Zilani are completely peaceful," added Dr. Park, who had come to the meeting. "They don't even have police on their world. If someone is attacking them, they have no way to defend themselves." Captain Ben Torres, commander of the heavy cruiser Valiant, spoke up. "Sir, we should help them. The Zilani have never hurt anyone." "It's not that simple," Morrison replied. "The Galactic Council has rules about getting involved in fights outside our territory. The Zilani never joined the Council, so officially, this is not our problem." "But they asked for help," Torres said. "They specifically asked for people who fight for others. That sounds like they're talking about us." Morrison knew Torres was right. Humans had a reputation in the galaxy. Most alien species thought they were dangerous because Earth was what they called a death world. The gravity was too strong, the weather was too violent, and the animals were too aggressive for most aliens to survive there. This made humans tough and scary to other species. But humans also had another reputation. When peaceful people were in trouble, humans would help them. They had done it before, during the border wars, when the Tau Ceti colonies were attacked. They had done it when pirates threatened the trade routes. Other species might call humans dangerous, but they also knew humans would protect the innocent. "About the politics?" asked Commander Sullivan. "If we go to help the Zilani without council approval, there will be trouble." "There's already trouble," Morrison said. "People are dying while the council sits around and talks. Sometimes you have to do what's right, not what's easy." He stood up and walked to the big window that looked out at Earth. The blue and white planet turned slowly below them. Somewhere down there, his wife was probably making breakfast for their kids. They were safe because people like him made hard choices. "Contact General Carter on Earth," he ordered. "Tell her to prepare the Terran Expeditionary Force for immediate deployment. Contact Chief Engineer Lee and tell him to prep our newest ships. Contact all fleet commanders and tell them to report for duty." "Sir," said Commander Sullivan, "that's our entire deep space fleet. The Council will not be happy." Morrison turned back to his officers. "The Council can complain all they want. Right now, somewhere in the Kepler sector, alien children are crying. In the darkness, they asked for help, and we're going to give it to them." He looked at each person in the room. The message said they were looking for people who fight for others. Well, that's exactly what we are. "Get me a communication line to Earth. It's time to wake up the fleet." As his officers hurried to follow orders, Morrison listened to the Zilani. "Message one more time." The fear in their voices reminded him why he had joined the Navy in the first place. Sometimes the galaxy was a dark and dangerous place, but that was exactly when good people needed to stand up and fight back. News traveled fast in the galaxy. By the time Admiral Morrison finished his morning coffee, Ambassador Helen Price was already dealing with angry calls from the Galactic Council. She sat in her office on the council station, watching her communication screen light up with messages from dozens of alien species. The first call came from the Centauri delegate, a tall blue alien with 4 arms. "Ambassador Price, we have heard rumors that Earth is planning military action in the Kepler sector. This is very concerning." Helen kept her voice calm. "We received a distress call from the Zilani. They're being attacked by an unknown hostile." "Force, the Zilani are not council members," the Centauri replied. "Earth has no authority to act in their territory. You must stop this immediately." "We must stop what?" "Helping innocent people who are being killed." "You must stop unleashing the Deathworlders," the alien said, fear clear in his voice. "When humans go to war, entire star systems suffer. Your species is too dangerous to act alone." Helen ended the call and rubbed her temples. She knew this was just the beginning. Every alien species in the galaxy was afraid of what humans could do when they decided to fight. Most of them had never seen human military power in action, but they had all heard the stories. Meanwhile on Earth, General Amy Carter was having the busiest day of her career. She stood in the command center at military headquarters watching screens that showed every human military base in the solar system. Ships were launching from Earth, Mars, and the asteroid belt. Soldiers were packing their gear and saying goodbye to their families. "How many ships can we deploy?" she asked her aide. 150 combat vessels, ma'am, plus support. Ships for supplies and medical help. We can have 200,000 troops ready to go in 48 hours. Carter nodded. It was the largest human military force ever assembled. The last time they had sent this many ships anywhere was during the border wars 20 years ago. But this mission was different. They were not fighting to protect human colonies. They were going to help complete strangers. Chief Engineer Ryan Lee was working 24 hours a day to get the fleet ready. He had been designing new warships for years, but most of them had never been used in real combat. Now he had to make sure they would work when people's lives depended on them. The new fusion cannons are installed on all the heavy cruisers, he reported to Admiral Morrison over video call. The shield generators are running at 110% of design specs. The biowarfare systems are loaded and ready. Morrison frowned. Biowarfare? I thought we agreed those weapons were too dangerous to use. Sir, we don't know what we're fighting yet. If these devourers are biological creatures, we might need every weapon we have. I'm not sending our people into battle without the best tools available, the Admiral understood. Human weapons were designed to fight other humans on worlds like Earth, but the galaxy was full of strange creatures that might not be hurt by normal bullets or lasers. Sometimes you needed weapons that could attack living things in ways that seemed almost like magic. Vice, Admiral Chris Wright, was coordinating with alien allies who secretly supported the mission. Even though the Galactic Council officially opposed human intervention, several species were quietly helping. The Altarians will provide fuel stops along our route, he reported. The Vegan Confederation is sharing intelligence about the Kepler sector. The Tau Ceti colonies are offering medical supplies. What about the others? Morrison asked. The big powers like the Centauri and the Rigel Empire are staying neutral. They're scared of what happens if we succeed. If humans can project this, much military power across the galaxy, it changes everything. Dr. Lisa Park was working with a team of scientists to learn everything they could about the Zilani and their attackers. What she discovered made the situation even more urgent. The Zilani are even more peaceful than we thought, she explained to the planning committee. They don't just avoid violence. Their brains are actually different from ours. They cannot feel anger or hatred. They literally do not understand the concept of hurting another living thing on purpose. That makes them completely defenseless, said General Carter. Exactly, and their attackers seem to know this. The few signals we've intercepted suggest the Devourers are targeting the Zilani because they know they won't fight back. The political situation got worse every day. The Galactic Council voted to officially condemn human military action. They threatened to impose economic sanctions on Earth. Some species even talked about kicking humanity out of the Council completely. Ambassador Price faced the council chamber filled with hundreds of alien delegates. Most of them looked angry or scared. She walked to the speaking platform and activated the microphone. Fellow council members, you ask us to stand by and watch while innocent people are murdered. You ask us to follow laws while others break the most basic law of all, the right to live. Earth's answer is simple. We refuse. The chamber erupted in angry voices. The Centauri delegates stood up. You cannot act without council approval. This is not how civilized species behave. Civilized. Helen's voice was sharp. What's civilized about watching genocide happen because it's not convenient to stop it? What's civilized about letting evil win because helping good takes effort? She looked around the chamber at all the alien faces. You call us Deathworlders. You say we're dangerous and violent? You're right. We are. But we're dangerous to those who hurt others. We're violent toward those who prey on the innocent. If that makes us uncivilized in your eyes, so be it. The vote was not even close. The Council condemned Earth's actions by a margin of 4-1. Economic sanctions would begin immediately. Several species recalled their ambassadors from Earth. Helen turned off her communication device and smiled. None of it mattered. While the Council was voting, human ships were already leaving the solar system. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Sovereign, and watched Earth disappear behind them. Around him, the largest human fleet in history moved through space toward the unknown. His officers were busy checking systems and preparing for battle. Message from Earth Command, his communication officer reported. President Santos sends her support and says the whole planet is proud of what we're doing. Morrison nodded. He thought about his own children, safe at home. Then he thought about the Zilani children crying in the darkness. Every parent in the galaxy should understand what they were doing. Send a message to the fleet, he ordered. Tell them we're not going as conquerors. We're going as guardians. The galaxy will judge us by what we do in the space between the stars. The journey to the Kepler sector would take 30 days. 30 days to plan, to prepare, and to get ready for a battle unlike anything humans had ever fought. Behind them, Earth watched and waited. Ahead of them, somewhere in the darkness, aliens were dying and calling for help. The Deathworlder Armada was coming. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler sector and found hell waiting for them. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the Sovereign and stared at the screens in shock. 3 planets that should have been green and full of life now looked like dead rocks floating in space. "My God," whispered Captain Torres from the communications station. "What happened to them?" Dr. Lisa Park was running scans from the science station. Her hands shook as she read the results. There's nothing left. No plants, no animals, no bacteria. Even the soil has been stripped away. These worlds have been completely harvested. Morrison felt sick. He had seen war before, but this was different. This was not destruction. This was consumption. Something had eaten entire planets. "Send the Shadow in for a closer look," he ordered. "I need to know what we're dealing with." Captain Nina Foster commanded the Shadow, a stealth ship designed for reconnaissance. She was known for being calm under pressure, but even she felt nervous as her ship approached the dead worlds. Her crew worked quietly, knowing that whatever had done this might still be nearby. "Take us to the 3rd planet," she ordered. The one called Harmony. Intelligence says it had a population of 50 million Zilani just 2 weeks ago. The Shadow moved silently through space, its advanced systems scanning everything. What they found made no sense. Cities were still standing, but they were completely empty. Streets that should have been full of alien families now had no life at all. Lieutenant and Colonel Dan Murphy led a team of Marines down to the planet's surface. They wore full environmental suits because the atmosphere had been changed. Instead of the oxygen and nitrogen that the Zilani breathed, the air now contained strange gases that would kill most living things. "This is Murphy 2 Shadow," he reported. Over his radio, "We're in the main city. There are no bodies, no signs of fighting. It's like everyone just disappeared." The Marines walked through empty buildings that still had furniture and personal belongings. Children's toys were scattered on floors. Meals were still on tables, now rotted and covered with strange mold. The Zilani had been taken while they were living their normal lives. "So you need to see this," called Sergeant Alex Johnson from across the street. He was standing next to what looked like a large pile of metal and plastic. Murphy joined him and realized what he was looking at. The Zilani had tried to build barriers using furniture, farm tools, and anything else they could find. The peaceful aliens had finally understood they needed to defend themselves, but they had no idea how to do it. They used dining room chairs and garden tools to try to stop whatever was coming, Johnson said quietly. These people had never fought anything in their entire lives. Back on the Shadow, Dr. Elena Rodriguez was analyzing samples of the strange substances left behind by the attackers. What she discovered was worse than anyone had imagined. "Captain Foster, these aren't just alien weapons," she reported. "The substances we're finding are designed to break down organic matter at the molecular level. Whatever attacked these worlds didn't just kill the Zilani, they dissolved them and absorbed the biological material." Foster felt her stomach turn. "You mean they were eaten? Not eaten, processed, like putting plants through a food processor, but for every living thing on the planet." The Shadow sensors picked up movement in space near the 4th world. Foster ordered her ship to investigate, keeping their stealth. "Systems active." What they found changed everything they thought they knew about warfare. The Devourer ships were not made of metal or plastic like human vessels. They were grown like giant living creatures floating in space. The largest one was 5 kilometers long and covered with what looked like organic tissue. Smaller ships moved around it like cells in a bloodstream. "Those aren't ships," whispered the sensor operator. "They're alive." Foster watched through her telescopes as the living ships worked on the 4th planet. Streams of energy flowed from the planet's surface to the ships, carrying dissolved organic matter. The ships seemed to grow larger as they fed. "Shadow to fleet," Foster transmitted on a secure channel. "I have visual contact with hostile forces. You need to see this data immediately." Admiral Morrison reviewed the reconnaissance reports with his senior staff. The situation was worse than their worst fears. They were not fighting a normal alien species. They were fighting something that consumed entire biospheres to make itself stronger. How many of these ships are there? Asked General Carter over the communication link from Earth. At least 50 around the fourth planet, reported Commander Sullivan from Intelligence. But sir, we intercepted some of their communications. They know we're here, and they're not afraid. In fact, they seem excited. Excited? Morrison asked. They view our fleet as additional biomass to be harvested. 200,000 humans represent a significant source of biological material. To them. Dr. Park was studying the translation of Devourer communications. Admiral, I think they've been doing this for a very long time. Communications suggest they've consumed worlds in other galaxies. This is how they live. They find inhabited planets, harvest everything living, and move on to the next target. The tactical situation was a nightmare. Human weapons were designed to fight ships made of metal and plastic. How do you destroy something that can heal damage and adapt to your attacks? How do you fight an enemy that gets stronger every time? It feeds. What about the main Zilani world? Morrison asked. Zephyria? Still populated, but under active attack, Sullivan reported. We're getting weak distress signals. The Devourers appear to be taking their time there, maybe because it has the largest population. Morrison made his decision. All ships prepare for immediate departure to Zephyria. We can't save the worlds that are already gone, but we can still save the survivors. As the human fleet prepared to move deeper into the Kepler sector, Chief Petty Officer Alex Johnson's patrol made a discovery that gave them hope. Hidden in deep caves on the third planet, they found a group of Zilani survivors. The aliens were terrified when the armed humans found them. Two species that had never seen violence, the sight of soldiers with weapons was almost as frightening as the Devourers themselves. But Dr. Park was able to communicate with them using translation devices. Please don't hurt us, the lead Zilani said in a voice full of fear. We have done nothing wrong. We're here to help you, Park said gently. We came because you called for help. You are the warriors from the Deathworld. Yes, we're humans from Earth. The Zilani looked at each other with expressions that mixed hope and terror. They had asked for help from people who fight, but they had never imagined what such people would actually look like. Through halting conversation, Park learned the terrible truth about the Devourer life cycle. They were not just one species, but a collective organism that had been consuming worlds for thousands of years. Planet they harvested made them stronger and more adaptable. They take everything, the Zilani explained. Every plant, every animal, every person. They break us down and use us to make more of themselves. We have seen this happen to many worlds. Morrison listened to the report and realized the full scope of what they were facing. This was not just about saving the Zilani. The Devourers represented a threat to every living thing in the galaxy. If they were not stopped here, they would continue consuming worlds until nothing was left. Send a message to Earth, he ordered. Tell them we're not just fighting to save the Zilani anymore. We're fighting to save everyone. The human fleet moved toward Zephyria, where millions of peaceful aliens waited for death or salvation. Behind them, 3 dead worlds served as a reminder of what failure would mean. Ahead of them, an enemy unlike anything they had ever faced was preparing to add human biomass to its collection. The battle for the survival of organic life in the galaxy was about to begin. The Battle of Zephyria began with humanity doing what they had always done best, adapting to fight an enemy no one had ever faced before. Dr. Kevin Chin, the fleet's military strategist, presented a plan that made even hardened veterans feel uncomfortable. Can't fight these things like normal ships, he explained to Admiral Morrison and the senior staff. They heal damage, they adapt to our weapons, and they get stronger when they feed. We need to think like biologists, not soldiers. Studied the tactical displays showing Devourer ships surrounding Zephyria. What do you suggest? We use biological weapons. Modified Earth viruses and bacteria designed to attack their organic systems. We have to poison them before they can adapt. The room went quiet. Every officer knew that biological weapons were banned by galactic law. They were considered too horrible to use against any thinking creature. Sir, said Captain Torres carefully, those weapons have been illegal for 50 years. The Devourers aren't bound by our laws, Morrison replied. They're dissolving entire civilizations. Sometimes you fight monsters by becoming something they fear even more. Colonel Sam Hayes oversaw the preparation of weapons that Earth had hoped never to use again. In the weapons bays of human ships, technicians loaded fusion mines that could sterilize entire asteroid fields. They prepared nanoviruses that could attack specific genetic patterns. They armed gravitational weapons that could tear apart living matter at the atomic level. "Are we sure about this?" asked one of the technicians as he loaded a container marked with biohazard symbols. "No," Hayes replied honestly. "But the alternative is letting those things consume the galaxy." Captain Julia Mason prepared for launch. In humanity's newest fighter design, the bioadaptive fighter could change its weapons and defenses during combat, literally evolving to meet new threats. It was technology that pushed the limits of what humans thought possible. Mason to flight. "Control," she radioed. "Systems check complete. Request permission to launch." Permission granted. "Good hunting, Captain." Mason's fighter launched from the Sovereign, along with 50 others just like it. They headed for the outer edge of the Devourer formation, where smaller bioships were moving like scouts around the main force. The first engagement taught the humans that everything they knew about space combat was wrong. Mason fired her plasma cannons at a Devourer scout ship and watched the energy beams burn through its organic hull. But instead of exploding, the ship began to heal itself. Within minutes, the damage was completely gone. This is Mason to all. Fighters' standard weapons are not effective, switching to biowarfare protocols. Her fighter's weapons changed, releasing a cloud of modified bacteria designed to attack organic tissue. The Devourer ship flew into the cloud and immediately began to dissolve. Its hull turned black and started falling apart like rotting meat. "Bioweapons are effective," Mason reported. "But they're adapting fast. I can see other ships changing their hull composition." Admiral Morrison coordinated the main fleet battle from the bridge of the Sovereign. Around him, his officers worked frantically to process information coming from dozens of battles happening simultaneously. "Fusion mines deployed around their main formation," reported the weapons officer. "Detonation in 30 seconds. The mines exploded with the force of small suns, creating fields of deadly radiation that would kill any normal living thing. The Devourer ships simply absorbed the energy and used it to grow larger." "Gravitational weapons? Fire at will," Morrison ordered. "The most terrible weapons in humanity's arsenal activated." Gravity waves swept through space, tearing apart anything in their path at the molecular level. Devourer bioships were ripped apart so completely that not even atoms remained intact. Major Lisa Thompson led Marine boarding parties onto damaged Devourer ships that had been crippled by the gravity weapons. The Marines wore power armor that would crush most alien species, allowing them to fight in environments that would kill anyone else. Thompson to command, she radioed from inside a Devourer ship. "The interior is like nothing we've ever seen. The walls are alive and trying to digest our equipment." The Marines moved through corridors filled with acid air and gravitational fields that changed randomly. They planted explosive charges designed to destroy the ships from the inside, racing against time as the bioships tried to heal around them. "Charges set," Thompson reported. "Getting my people out now." The explosions tore through the Devourer ships, but even that was not enough to stop them completely. Parts of the destroyed ships floated through space and tried to merge with other vessels to continue the fight. On Zephyria's surface, Dr. Lisa Park coordinated the evacuation of Zilani civilians, while battles raged overhead. The peaceful aliens watched human fighters dance through space, firing weapons that turned living ships into clouds of dust. "Your people are very frightening," said Elder Keth, the leader of the Zilani refugees. "We are grateful, but we do not understand how anyone can be so comfortable with destruction." "We're not comfortable with it," Park replied as another explosion lit up the sky. "We hate it. But sometimes the only way to protect life is to destroy those who would take it away." The tide of battle turned when humanity deployed their most controversial weapon. Chief Engineer Ryan Lee had converted asteroid mining ships into carriers for self-replicating construction nanites. But instead of building, these nanites were programmed to take apart Devourer bioships one atom at a time, A night. Deployment successful, Lee reported. The nanites are spreading through their formation and beginning deconstruction protocols. The effect was devastating. Devourer ships began to fall apart as billions of tiny machines consumed them faster than they could heal. The nanites spread from ship to ship, turning the enemy fleet into expanding clouds of component atoms. But the Devourers had one final surprise. Their largest ship, a bioconstruct the size of a small moon, began to glow with internal energy. Scans showed it was preparing to release a weapon that could sterilize entire star systems. All ships, concentrate fire on the command organism, Morrison ordered. Everything we have, right now. The human fleet unleashed every weapon they possessed. Fusion cannons, gravity bombs, biowarfare clouds, and nanite swarms all struck the massive Devourer ship simultaneously. The creature writhed and pulsed as different weapons tore it apart in different ways. Vice Admiral Chris Wright led the final assault in his heavy cruiser Defiant. Wright to all ships. I'm taking my ship into direct contact with that thing. We can plant fusion charges inside its core. We can finish this, Chris. That's suicide, Morrison said over the radio. Maybe, but if that thing gets its weapon charged, we're all dead anyway. Besides, someone has to get close enough to plant the charges. Wright's ship dove toward the massive Devourer, taking damage from every direction. His crew worked desperately to keep the ship functioning as organic weapons tried to dissolve their hull. Charges planted, Wright reported. Getting clear now. The fusion charges detonated inside the command organism, and the resulting explosion could be seen from 3 star systems away. The massive bioship simply ceased to exist, taking with it the coordination center for the entire Devourer fleet. Without their command ship, the remaining Devourers lost cohesion. Some tried to flee, but human fighters hunted them down. Others tried to continue fighting, but they were overwhelmed by superior numbers and tactics. When the battle finally ended, space around Zephyria was filled with debris and floating particles that had once been living ships. The human fleet had won, but the cost was terrible. 30 ships were destroyed or too damaged to repair. 5,000 humans were dead, and twice that many were wounded. Admiral Morrison stood on his bridge and looked at the casualty reports. They had saved Zephyria and stopped a threat that could have consumed the galaxy. But the price paid by his people was almost too much to bear. Sir, said his communication officer, we're receiving a message from the Zilani on the planet's surface. It threw. Elderket's voice came through the speakers, shaky but filled with emotion. Admiral Morrison, on behalf of all Zilani, we thank you. Have saved not just our world, but our entire species. We will remember this day forever. Morrison closed his eyes and thought about the humans who would never go home. The honor was ours, Elder Keth. Some fights are worth any price. The Deathworlder Armada had been unleashed, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 months after the Battle of Zephyria, the galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. President Maria Santos sat in her office on Earth, reading reports that made her both proud and worried. The human fleet had saved an entire species, but the cost was higher than anyone had expected. Final casualty count is in, said her aide, placing a data pad on her desk. 5,000 dead, 12,000 wounded, 30 ships lost, 60 more requiring major repairs. Financial cost is over 2 trillion credits. Santos rubbed her temples. Earth's economy was strong, but spending that much money in 3 months had strained every resource. Families across the planet were mourning loved ones who had died fighting for people they had never met. But the real problem was not the money or even the casualties. The real problem was fear. Ambassador Helen Price sat in the Galactic Council chamber, facing the same alien delegates who had condemned Earth's actions 3 months earlier. Now they were demanding something much worse. The human military must be placed under international supervision, announced the Centauri delegate. No single species can be allowed to possess weapons of such devastating power. Earth has proven that humans cannot be trusted with advanced weaponry, added the representative from Rigel. They used biological weapons, gravitational bombs, and nanite swarms. These are all banned by galactic law. Ellen stood at the speaking platform and looked around the chamber. Most of the alien faces showed fear mixed with anger. They were grateful that the Devourers had been stopped, but terrified of the species that had done the stopping. "You want to limit our military because we use terrible weapons to fight a terrible enemy?" she said calmly. "You want to control us because we were willing to break your laws to save innocent lives. Your weapons could destroy entire star systems," the Centauri replied. "No species should have that much power. No species should need that much power," Helen shot back. "But the Devourers forced us to use everything we had. Would you prefer that we had followed your laws and watched the Zillianae be consumed?" Earth Admiral Rachel Green faced the challenge of rebuilding the fleet while preparing for new threats. He had replaced Admiral Morrison, who was still recovering from injuries suffered during the final battle. The responsibility of protecting human space now fell on her shoulders. "Intelligence reports indicate there may be other Devourer fleets in distant galaxies," she told her staff during a morning briefing. "The ones we fought were just one group of many." Captain Steve Clark, now in charge of establishing the new defense network, studied the star charts. "We need permanent monitoring stations throughout the Kepler sector. If the Devourers come back, we have to detect them early." "That means a permanent military presence in alien territory," said Commander Williams. "The Council will not approve that." "The Council does not have to approve it," Green replied. "Zilani have already given us permission. They understand that their survival depends on our protection." Dr. Paul Williams worked in the medical centers treating human casualties from the battle. Many Marines were suffering from exposure to Devourer bioweapons that Earth's doctors had never seen before. The alien toxins attacked human nervous systems in ways that seemed almost designed to cause maximum suffering. "How many will recover completely?" asked General Carter during one of her visits to the medical facility. "About 60%? Williams replied honestly. "The rest will have permanent disabilities. Some will never walk again. Others have brain damage that we cannot fix." Carter watched a young Marine trying to relearn how to use his legs after Devourer acid had damaged his spine. He was 19 when he enlisted, joined to see the galaxy, and maybe help some people. "He did help people," Williams said. "Millions of Zilani are alive because of what he did." "I know, but try explaining that to his mother." The political situation in the galaxy became more complicated every day. Several species demanded that Earth be expelled from the Galactic Council. Others quietly approached human diplomats to request defense agreements. The galaxy was dividing into those who feared human power and those who wanted human protection. President Santos addressed the United Earth government about the new reality they faced. "The galaxy now knows what we are capable of when we decide to fight. Some species want to limit us. Others want to use us. We must chart a course between fear and exploitation." "What about the Zilani?" asked one representative. "What do they want?" "They want to learn from us," Santos replied. "Not how to fight, but how to protect themselves. They are building their first defensive systems and asking for human advisors." Zephyria, Dr. Lisa Park, worked as Earth's first permanent ambassador to the Zilani. The peaceful aliens were struggling to understand a galaxy where violence was sometimes necessary for survival. "We have lived for thousands of years without weapons," said Elder Keth during one of their regular meetings. "Now we learn that this made us prey for creatures like the Devourers." "You were not prey," Park replied. "You were innocent." "There is a difference, is there? In a galaxy where innocence invites destruction, how do we remain who we are?" A question that haunted Park every day. The Zilani were building defenses, but they were also losing some of their peaceful nature. They were becoming more suspicious, more careful, more willing to consider violence as an option. 6 months after the battle, Ambassador Price presented a new proposal to the Galactic Council. Instead of limiting human military power, she suggested creating a joint defense force that could respond to threats like the Devourers. Species that cannot defend themselves would contribute resources, intelligence, and support, she explained. Species with military capability would provide protection. It would be a true partnership based on mutual benefit. The debate lasted for weeks. Many species feared that humans would use such an organization to dominate the galaxy. Others argued that the Devourer threat proved that cooperation was essential for survival. The vote was close, but it passed when the Zelene delegation made an emotional appeal. Elder Keth spoke to the council with tears in his eyes. You debate whether to trust the species that saved us. You debate whether we can survive without them. The new Galactic Defense Force was established with Admiral Green as its first human commander. Ships from a dozen species would patrol the dangerous sectors where threats like the Devourers might emerge. A year after the Battle of Zephyria, a memorial was dedicated on the Zelene homeworld. The monument listed the names of every human who had died protecting their world. The inscription, written in both Zelani poetry and human languages, read, "To those who came from the death world, bearing gifts of fire and fury, who chose to stand between darkness and light." Admiral Morrison, finally recovered from his injuries, attended the ceremony, stood before the memorial with tears in his eyes. Thinking about the price of protection, Elder Keth approached him during the ceremony. "Admiral, do you regret what your people did?" Morrison looked at the Zelani children playing safely in the gardens around the memorial. "We regret the cost, but never the choice. Some things are worth any price, even if the galaxy fears you. For it, especially then, fear can be overcome with time and understanding. Death is permanent." Dr. Park reflected on how much had changed in just 1 year. Humanity's reputation as dangerous Deathworlders remained, but it was now balanced by Nemesino recognition of their role as protectors. The galaxy had learned that the species from the violent world could be trusted to use their power wisely, as she watched human patrol ships, beginning their eternal watch over the sectors where peaceful species faced threats they could not defeat alone. Park understood that everything had changed. The cry for help that started it all had been answered. But the responsibility it created would last forever. Admiral Green's final log entry captured the new reality: we never asked to be the galaxy's guardians, but some duties choose us rather than the other way around. The stars are vast and full of dangers, but they are also full of people worth protecting. We will stand watch in the darkness so others can live in the light. The Deathworlder Armada had been unleashed, and the galaxy would never be the same. But perhaps that was exactly what the galaxy needed: